Um, so you good to go?
I am good to go.
Awesome. Welcome. So happy to have you here. And thank you for being our next speaker. I'm delighted to have you.
All right. Well, I am excited to be here. Like our last speaker, Kim, I am on the road today. I normally am in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Today, I am in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In a few hours, my stepson gets married, but I was not going to pass up an opportunity to be here with you today because self-care is important. And too often, it is something that we push off. And I sit with so many people and hear the sentence, I will take care of this when, fill in the blank, when my kids go to college, when my kids go to kindergarten, when I reach this point in my business, I will do X, Y, Z. We can always make an excuse to put off taking care of ourselves. And that looks like a lot of different things. For me, I am a personal trainer and nutrition coach. So I'm dealing with mostly the physical with people, but it comes in a lot of different areas. It could be going to the doctor. It could be taking care of some of those emotional and mental things that we just push off to the side. It can be so many different areas in life. But when we are not putting ourselves first, we are no good to anyone else. And ultimately, we're going to hit the wall. And I came to this place because that's what happened in my life. I came to a point about 8 years ago where I was just going through the motions of life. It looked great on the outside. I was the administrator for an international nonprofit organization and doing all the things, wearing all the hats, but I was miserable. I was 200 pounds heavier than I am today. I was almost not mobile. I was going through the drive-through twice a day to feed myself and my husband. I could barely even cognitively put the thoughts together other than just signing my name on the forms and going through the daily routines in life. That was not living my life. And I reached the point where I'm like, this has to change. And in my mind, it was, okay, what's the next diet? Because that's all I had done throughout my entire life was diet, gain and lose hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So diets weren't going to be the answer this time, but what was going to change? So what did I do? I went and drank water. And it wasn't this crazy thing like I'm going to go and drink a gallon of water a day. I had a 6-ounce cup of water. And every time this little timer went off, I'd go to the other end of the office and fill the water cup, building the habit of drinking water. Then the next habit came in. I wasn't going to go to the drive-through. I was going to cook at home. Didn't matter what I was going to cook, but I was going to cook at home. Then it was maybe start looking at what I am cooking and swapping out foods. How do different foods make me feel? And building these very small habits naturally started to lose weight, feel a little bit better. And so, okay, maybe movement sounds okay at this point, but I was still in a very large body that wasn't mobile. So walking seemed like the only plausible answer. So walked to the end of the street and back, thought I was going to die. So kept walking to the end of the street and back. That walk became around the block, around the neighborhood, further and further. Then the girl that faked sick in gym class decided, I think I'm going to run. Now, this is a foreign concept, but I ran to a stop sign, maybe 50 yards down the road one day, and something clicked. And I went home and said, I'm going to figure out this fat girl running thing. Something changed in me in that day that I enjoyed it. Didn't know why, because I had never enjoyed running ever before. But that became the catalyst to what movement was for me. And so that 50 yards became 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, marathons, jumping over into triathlons, working up the distances there, from walking up and down the street to training for Ironman distance triathlons. Now, I haven't spent a day intentionally dieting since then. I've lost over 200 pounds, but it's the habits that came along with it that instilled the change. It was focusing on, how do I want to feel? Every day, that is the question. How do I want to feel? I probably asked that question no less than 50 times. How do I want to feel? When I get up in the morning, do I want to go back to bed? Probably the answer is yes, because I am an exceptionally lazy person. But how do I want to feel? I don't want to feel like a lazy person. So what's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to move. I'm going to get some water. I want to feel refreshed. What's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to nourish myself. How do I want to feel? So in nourishing myself, what are the foods that are going to make me feel good? Now we translate that to the workplace. The workplace has changed. We don't necessarily get up and go to an office every day. My office is 10 feet from my bedroom. I own a licensed residential business. People come to me or I see them on a screen. Or I go to the community college and a lot of other places. I drive around all day. There's a lot of different places that I go. Some of you may work from your couch. The workplace looks very different in 2022 than it did even 5-10 years ago. So now we need to look at what it takes to feel good, to power our lives in the workplace, to really thrive, to really put ourselves first, so that how do I want to feel showing up for ourselves in the morning when we get up, throughout the day, when we finish the day, how we're showing up for the family or whatever we're doing afterwards, that whole picture of the day. That's really what we want to think about. And so the building blocks of how do we want to feel, that nourishment in the workplace, it looks different for everyone because we have to take into account our schedule, our availability, what our individual needs are, and what the demands on our time are. And sometimes that difficult word, no, and stepping back to put ourselves first. And so first, let's look at what it means to nourish ourselves through the day. And because just as many people as on the screen or will eventually listen to this, that's as many different ways as there is to appropriately nourish ourselves. There is no one proper way to eat because we all have individual needs for nourishment. And that's why it comes back to how do I want to feel? It really is an intuitive thing. Our body will tell us what it needs if we are aware. Yes, we know we need certain nutrients. We know that we need certain things to power the body. We need carbohydrates, we need protein, we need fat. That is what the body is powered by. We need other micronutrients to run different systems of the body. We know these things, but we need them at different levels, and that's okay. You know, we don't have to go out in the weeds. But when it comes to what our individual needs are, it's back into tuning into the self and separating ourselves from the noise of the day. That's where it gets hard, because are you eating at your desk? Are you eating with the phone in the hand, or the YouTube playing, the TV playing, the radio playing in the background? Or are you focused on the food itself in front of you? Now, it's not 100% of the time feasible, and I will completely acknowledge this, to focus solely on the experience of what we're eating. But if we can separate ourselves from the work environment, and I tell people, even if you can just walk around to the other side of your desk, so you change the view from where you are working to eat your food, to get away from the screens and focus on that sensory experience of what you're eating. What does the food look like? What is the temperature? What does it taste like? What is the texture in your mouth? You know, what are all the different sensory experiences of that food? You will feel more satisfied. And when we feel more satisfied from the food we're consuming, whether it takes us 2 minutes or 20 minutes to consume it, studies show we are going to, in the long run, consume less, be more satisfied with that food, and not eat to the point of extreme fullness, and give ourselves what we need, not to the point of excess. I like to call it the toddler diet, because think about a toddler. Kids will come and say, I want this. They may eat the entire portion of what is provided for them, or they may eat 3 bites, walk away, and they are completely good to go. They are following that complete intuition. They understand this is what my body needs, and I'm good, and I can go on with life. And so if we start to think like that toddler, if we start to really pay attention to what our body needs, then we're able to give ourselves that fuel, give our body that food to power it, to really be engaged throughout the day. Because that food powers our cognition, powers our creativity, and really helps us to feel how we want to feel. Shifting over to that movement, one of the things that we often get into the mindset of with exercise is, if I don't do a 20-minute, a 30-minute, a 45-minute, a 60-minute workout, then for some reason it doesn't count. If you move your body, it counts as exercise. It counts as movement. Your housework, you're carrying in the groceries, if you move your body, it counts. And that is so important to realize, because any movement is good movement. And especially when we are working at home, when we are sitting at our desk, especially creative people, we get into the zone. And before we realize it, we might be sitting at the computer for several hours at a time without getting up and moving around. That can be problematic because we do get stiff joints. It's bad for our neck, for our shoulders, for our low back, for our hips, and so on. If you can at least get up once an hour for just 3 minutes and stand or walk around, the health benefits for that is exponential. But if you think about it, even just doing 5 minutes of intentional movement throughout your day or even your week has a cumulative effect. If you are a person that doesn't exercise at all, and you start with 5 minutes a day, 6 days a week, you've now added 30 minutes of intentional movement to your life that you weren't doing before. That's powerful. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be like what I did, walk to the end of the street and back. It could be to the mailbox and back. It doesn't have to be, let me get all gross and sweaty. Let me go lift all these crazy weights. It can be something very simple. Because ultimately, moving our body, what we want to think about, especially in terms of the workplace or enhancing our lives in how we want to feel, we want to enhance the daily movements. So that's our push, pull, bend, twist, squat movements. Those natural movements that happen in everyday life. I mean, think about just all the movements that take place carrying a load of laundry to the laundry room, putting it in the washer, changing it to the dryer, pulling it out of the dryer, folding those clothes, and putting them away. That is all of those movements. And if somehow we enhance those movements, it might not seem like such a chore because we're stronger and we're doing those movements a little bit more throughout the day. And so if we continually check in with ourselves, how do I want to feel? If I'm not feeling how I want to feel, then what's going to change that? It's not going to change overnight. I am not a proponent of large programs, of the New Year's resolution. I am like the world's biggest anti-New Year's resolution person. Because when you think about it, you're superimposing something on your life. You're taking something that's structured and you're making it fit your life. So it might work for a few months, a few weeks. Usually it only works for a little while. And then it starts to crumble. And why does it start to crumble? Usually because it didn't fit our schedule, it didn't fit our budget, it didn't fit our family values. There's a lot of things that it didn't check the boxes for, other than maybe it hit the end result, it hit the goal that we wanted to meet. But if we think about it from the other way, If we start to introduce really small changes that inch us towards where we want to be, inch us towards how we want to feel, that cup of water, maybe cooking once a week, or 5 minutes of movement instead of an hour. Those are really easy things to start to put on the calendar, to start to plan into our budget, to introduce a new recipe with our family that maybe the kids will eat. So it really starts to check all those boxes with our lifestyle. It doesn't feel big. It doesn't feel scary, so that it has a better chance of sticking. So when we repeat it over and over, it's a little bit more natural than something that we superimpose on life and feel like we have to check all the boxes. This is just one thing at a time that we have to introduce and say, okay, this feels good. Hey, I'm doing pretty well. What can I bring on next? What can I do next? What can I do next? We build momentum. We feel good because we're being successful at checking those boxes, at feeling good. We start to have to ask ourselves less, how do I want to feel? Because we're already feeling pretty darn good. And we reach that point where we are first. We're first in our lives. We're first in our businesses. We're first in our families. And we're running circles around everybody else. I reached the point in that previous career where once I lost the weight, once I got active, I had also done a lot of emotional healing. I had done a lot of spiritual growth and realized I was in a very toxic work environment, and it was no longer appropriate for me to be there, and had to make the choice to move to something else. Now, for me, the appropriate choice was to open my business. For other people, it might look like other choices as you grow, as you change, as you evolve. But what it is after we continue to put ourselves first, that question of how do I want to feel becomes less and less, because we are living it each and every day. We feel how we want to feel. People see it. People see the change because it radiates out of you. And I cannot tell you how important it is. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but don't allow anything to be that point of, I will do this when, because there is nothing more important than you. You were put on this earth for a reason. You were created for a reason. And so thrive for a reason. And with that, my goodie for the day is I have a free 30-minute consultation, and we can talk about how I want to feel looks like for you. Because like I said, it looks different for everybody. We all have a different definition of health. We all have a different definition for wellness. I know I am not everyone's jam, but I have a huge referral network as well. And so, let's have a chat. And I thank you so much.